What is up, guys? So today we're actually back with another Rainbow Cup video. Today we're actually going to be going over the top 5 fire type Pokemon that I think you guys should take a look at. Now, just a quick disclaimer, of course this list does come from pvpoke.com. These are literally the top 5 ranked Pokemon on there. But the purpose of this video is to kind of figure out why those 5 Pokemon are there rather than just assuming that they're good. So let's actually get started today. Our first Pokemon that we're actually going to go over is Charizard. So he is ranked number 1 on PvPoke, and he does have a slight reason why he's number 1. So he only has 3 weaknesses with water, electric, and a double weakness or a quad damage, whatever you want to call it, to rock type moves. So he does have quite the glaring weakness, considering he can take 4 times the normal amount of damage if a rock type move comes at him. But you can kind of dodge around that kind of stuff and kind of set yourself up for Charizard to be really punishing. Now, we do have Wing Attack and Air Slash here, and Wing Attack being a legacy move does kind of make it a little bit more rare. It is going to inch out just a little bit ahead of Air Slash because it does have just a tiny bit more energy gain. But if you don't have it, Air Slash is actually very comparable. It's not too far behind on stat. Then we have Fire Spin or Ember, and this one's a little different. Fire Spin just objectively is better. It actually gains a third more energy every turn than Ember does for the exact same amount of damage, so there's no downside to using Fire Spin over Ember and Ember's legacy, so just go with Fire Spin. Next we have Blast Burn, Blast Burn, Blast Burn. So the entire reason that Charizard is this freaking high, in my opinion, is because Blast Burn is such a freaking powerhouse of a move. Honestly, it's why it puts Typhlosion this high up. But anyway, Blast Burn is a must on this list because Blast Burn is such a low energy cost compared to our other fire moves with such a great payoff. A 2.2 damage per energy ratio is nothing to scoff at. Blast Burn is the one and only fire move that I think Charizard actually ends up needing. Then we actually have Dragon Claw, and I have it listed as greater than any of the other type moves. So Dragon Claw only costing 35 is just perfect for Charizard. It gives him so much more speed than he typically would have with his other fire type moves. And considering that all of his other moves that he has access to are only fire type, and Blast Burn's basically got us covered there, Dragon Claw is just an easy fit. It helps with our coverage. It's going to do neutral damage to most of the cup, and it's just great all around. Next, we're actually going to talk about Typhlosion here. So Typhlosion also has 3 weaknesses, except a different set of weaknesses. So we have a ground type weakness, a water type weakness, and a rock type weakness. Living in the shadow of Charizard, it's kind of a hard knock life for Typhlosion. But with only 3 weaknesses and a totally different set of weaknesses, he does have some sort of application in the cup. It's just a slight bit different. So he does have Shadow Claw and Ember on his fast moves, and I think there is a case for both, but Shadow Claw actually seems more enticing for me, at least, because it does actually gain us more energy per turn rather than Ember does, but at the trade-off that being a more generalist type attacker versus that if we had that Ember move, we would be more of a specialist towards the grass typing and the bug typing as well. So it kind of is really dependent on what kind of Typhlosion you're looking on building. Next, in the charge move area, you'd never guess. Blast Burn, Blast Burn, Blast Burn. So Blast Burn is, here again, the most important fire move that we could probably have on Typhlosion. It ends up just being such a powerhouse yet again and taking the place of our fire move that we don't really care what other fire moves Typhlosion has. Yeah, you could build a complete fire Typhlosion to be a complete specialist, but I really think that Blast Burn will take care of any kind of threat that is super effective to fire that you could possibly throw at it. So actually, I end up liking Solar Beam compared to all of the other fire type moves that we have. It does kind of give us a small edge if we do end up going up against some of the water types, if we are able to farm in another matchup and actually just be able to throw out that Solar Beam against a last ditch water effort. You know, it could work, right? Maybe. Next, we actually have Ninetails. And yes, Ninetails made the list. So Ninetails is actually such an interesting Pokemon, but it always ends up just right outside of the line of the meta. but I think maybe we finally have our time where Ninetails actually has some input into this cup. One day I knew we'd make it. Ninetails actually has 3 weaknesses here, again being a pure fire type Pokemon, only weak to ground, rock, and water, and immediately into this Fire Spin over Ember. Just like we've already previously talked about, Fire Spin is just objectively better, getting an extra third of an energy per turn for the exact same amount of damage. Why wouldn't you go with Fire Spin? Now we also do have access to Feint Attack, which I guess you could end up using Feint Attack for more of like a generalist kind of thing, which I actually think it would be kind of interesting. Hold that thought, hold that thought. So we do have Flamethrower here for the speed. Flamethrower is our fastest fire type move, so that kind of covers our fire type stab damage. And then it's really up to what kind of neutral move we want to have as well. Then we do have Psyshock and Solar Beam. So between those two, it kind of really depends on which direction you want to take. The Solar Beam will kind of help in that last ditch effort up against a water type if you do get back up against the wall. Hopefully you're able to farm a little bit of energy before that matchup. Otherwise you're just going to be caught with your tail down in between your legs and you're going to have to run away home. But if you do have Psyshock, then there could be a interesting application there because it's going to do neutral damage to a lot of the cup. Not everything. There are a couple of things that carry that psychic typing that are going to resist it. But in general, Psyshock seems really interesting. I do also think with Feint Attack, it would be really interesting to build a complete neutral generalist with our Ninetails here. Feint Attack, Psyshock, and Solar Beam. I mean, hey, it's kind of crazy, it's kind of wacky, but it'd be kind of interesting to look at, you know? Next, we actually have McCargo here. Of course, I've already did a deep dive on McCargo as of recording this video, so if you want a little bit more in-depth about McCargo, definitely go back and check that out. I've only posted it a couple of days ago, so it shouldn't be too far back. But basically, McCargo is 3 weaknesses here. Now, his weaknesses are a little different, considering he does carry that rock and that fire typing. He is going to be weak to fighting, rock, and he carries a quad weakness to ground and a quad weakness to water, or a double weakness, or whatever you want to call it. Look, I'm tired of getting argued with that I say it the wrong way. It's just the way that I say it. You're going to take 4 times the normal damage. Okay, that's what I mean. His main stick here is that he is a fire type going up against the fire types. Basically, with his neutral damage being Rock Throw, he's got an insane amount of utility up against his own typing because he can resist a ton of their damage while dealing either super effective or at least neutral damage to some other Pokemon. Now with Rock Throw, you do become more of a generalist, and if you run Ember, you are going to be more of a specialist. Kind of depends on which route you want to go there. But I definitely think that Overheat does way better than Heat Wave in our situation because we already have access to Stone Edge, which is such a great move already. I definitely don't think that you should build McCargo without it. Then it just comes down to Overheat or Heat Wave. I think that Overheat makes a little bit more sense here only because it is quite more efficient and we're not actually trying to go for speed on our fire move, unlike how we were with Blast Burn on the first 2. Last but not least, we do have Houndoom here, which is quite a unique one. So a dark and fire type Pokemon actually carrying 4 different weaknesses here, fighting, ground, rock, and water. And Houndoom has an interesting application. Only 5th on the list because he does have quite a few weaknesses, and I think that does kind of start to put him behind in some scenarios. But he does have access to Snarl and Fire Fang, which I think is kind of interesting. Fire Fang is a really good move to begin with, but Snarl actually gains us a ton of energy per turn, so it could actually be pretty good to set up for some speed tactics with our Houndoom here. As far as our charge moves go, we definitely want to have Crunch for our speed move here. Plus, it's going to get stab damage, and Crunch is already amazing. It's like 35 energy for what, 70 damage or something crazy like that. So then it actually comes down to Fire Blast versus Flamethrower. And honestly here, Flamethrower makes more sense for me, considering that it is the cheaper of the 2 before you can activate it. It makes a lot more sense to keep that speed going, whether you choose Snarl or Fire Fang. I definitely think having the lower cost move does help because we already are super speedy, and once you have that low cost charge move, it does make your fight a lot more fluid and a little bit easier going. because you can kind of put a lot of that shield pressure on where your opponent may not be able to. So that is actually it for all of the fire type Pokemon, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you have any deep dive ideas, you can put them down in the comments below. If not, thanks for hanging out. I really do appreciate you guys watching. If you would like to like a video, you could do that. But if you don't, you could be that guy. Otherwise, let me know what you have to say down in the comments below. And until our next video, I will catch you then.